The penthouse hums with laughter that feels too rehearsed, like an orchestra of lies beneath chandeliers trembling from the bass of hidden guilt. The city glows far below, each window a story, each story a secret. She stands near the glass, her reflection blending with the skyline, calm, radiant, unreadable. Tonight is her birthday, yet the only gift she receives is humiliation wrapped in a smile. When he arrives, hand entwined with his secretaries, the crowd gasps softly, disguising pity as politeness. Cameras flash, toasts rise, and the air grows heavier with every clink of glass. But beneath her quiet stillness, a storm begins to form, not of rage, but of precision. She will not cry, she will not beg. She will wait, and when the lights burn brightest, truth will become her gift to them all. Laughter fades as the DJ lowers the volume, and the room falls into a glittering silence that feels almost reverent. Marcus steps forward, his hand resting on the small of Sienna's back, announcing his beloved wife's special night. The crowd claps, some genuinely, others uneasily, unsure which woman the toast is truly for. Evelyn stands beneath the chandelier, her face serene, her pulse a quiet thunder in her wrist. As he lifts his glass, she studies the tremor in his fingers. The tell of a man too sure of himself, yet afraid of the silence between words. When the toast ends, she meets his gaze with calm precision and says softly, "I have a few words, too." Her voice cuts through the air like silk. Elegant, deliberate, dangerous. The microphone hums faintly as Evelyn's fingers graze its stem. Her voice is soft, yet every word carries through the room, like a slow unraveling of truth. She speaks of gratitude, of loyalty, of the beauty of transparency. Words heavy with irony, only Marcus seems too slow to grasp. The guests shift, sensing undercurrents they cannot name. Sienna's smile flickers, falters. Evelyn's gaze rests on her, not cruelly, but with a devastating gentleness, as though forgiving her for a sin already judged. "Every story has two sides," she says, "but tonight, only one truth deserves the light." The city outside pulses in rhythm with her words, neon bleeding into glass, as if the skyline itself leans closer to listen. She sets her glass down and reaches for the small white envelope on the marble counter beside her. The gesture is unhurried, deliberate, the kind of motion that silences a room without force. "A birthday gift," she murmurs, smiling faintly, "for the one who's given me so much to learn." Marcus laughs nervously, the sound brittle against the hush. When she opens it, photographs slide out, gliding across the counter like fallen truths. Hotel rooms, blurred dates, whispered betrayals captured in flash and shadow. Sienna gasps softly, color draining from her cheeks. Marcus's hand twitches toward the evidence but stops. Evelyn doesn't look at him. She simply says, "You left them on the cloud. I thought I'd return them to the sky." For a heartbeat, no one breathes. The air is thick with the metallic scent of champagne and panic. The band, sensing the shift, stops mid-note. Outside, the city's neon glow bleeds red against the glass, like the pulse of something newly awakened. Marcus tries to speak, a stammered denial, but Evelyn's calm cuts through it. "Happy birthday to me," she says, almost tenderly, her voice a mirror of composure he can no longer counterfeit. The guests look away, pretending to sip their drinks, pretending not to have seen the empire collapse behind a single smile. Sienna walks toward the elevator in silence, heels echoing like confessions. Evelyn turns back to the crowd, and the faintest hint of peace touches her lips, not triumph, but release. Dawn breaks through the penthouse windows like an unwelcome truth, painting the marble floor in pale gold. The party is over, but the scent of champagne and betrayal lingers. Evelyn stands barefoot, surrounded by scattered glasses, wilted flowers, and forgotten laughter. She traces a fingertip across the bar where the photographs once lay, A battlefield now cleared of evidence, but not of memory. The city below hums indifferently, unaware that one life has quietly burned to ash. She does not cry. Instead, she breathes. In that breath lies something sacred. A rebirth not born of vengeance, but of release. Her reflection in the glass looks back, not as a victim, but as the author of her own silence. The dining table, once built for two, now feels like a museum exhibit, a monument to conversations that never meant what they said. Evelyn prepares black coffee, the ritual precise, almost ceremonial. Across from her, an empty chair waits, accusatory and silent. She places a cup before it anyway, a quiet requiem for routine. The first sip burns her tongue, but she doesn't flinch. On the counter, Marcus's cufflinks glint beside her wedding ring, both abandoned symbols of ownership. The silence is heavy, but not unbearable. She realizes, perhaps for the first time, that peace doesn't come from forgiveness or fury, but from no longer needing either. Her phone vibrates on the table, a name flashing like a ghost she'd already buried. Marcus. The screen lights the shadows of her face as she reads his messages. Apologies disguised as reasoning. Sorrow masquerading as love. She scrolls once, twice, and then stops. There are no words that can undo a lie lived so convincingly. She types a single sentence, "Don't call again." There is nothing left to explain. Her thumb hovers for a breath, then presses send. The sound of the message leaving is softer than a sigh, yet it feels like thunder in her chest. Somewhere below, a car engine roars and fades. His final exit. Unseen, unheard, the doorbell rings. For a moment, she considers not answering, but habit wins. It's Sienna. Eyes swollen, voice trembling with apologies that spill too fast to mean anything yet. Evelyn listens, not out of sympathy, but understanding. They're both women who loved the wrong man in different ways. When Sienna breaks down, Evelyn doesn't comfort her. Instead, she simply says, "Now you know what kind of silence I lived in." The younger woman nods, ashamed, grateful, small. As she leaves, Evelyn feels no satisfaction. Only the quiet truth that forgiveness isn't a gift. It's the boundary that closes a door forever. That evening, the penthouse feels cavernous, yet not empty. Just honest. Evelyn sits at the grand piano by the window, an instrument she hasn't touched in years. Her fingers hover over ivory keys, uncertain, trembling not from sadness but rediscovery. The first note echoes soft and hesitant, then steadies into melody. Raw, imperfect, human. Outside, the skyline blushes into twilight, the city's heartbeat sensing with her own. She plays until night folds itself over her shoulders, the music dissolving into quiet acceptance. No tears, no bitterness, just the simple truth that endings can sound like beginnings if you play them slow enough. The loft smells of turpentine and rain. It's the art studio she once abandoned, a space that once held her before she became someone's ornament. Now, its emptiness feels sacred. Canvas frames lean against brick walls, dust floating like faint memories in the shafts of sunlight. Evelyn stands before a blank canvas, brush trembling in her hand. The first stroke feels hesitant, almost intrusive, but soon color spills into color, forming chaos that feels alive. She paints not to express anger or sadness, but to remember movement, to feel her pulse again. Outside, thunder murmurs over the city, but she doesn't stop. Creation becomes confession, and for the first time in years, her silence feels like art. Weeks later, she walks into a small downtown gallery carrying her first finished piece. The curator, an older woman with a knowing smile, nods approvingly as the painting is placed beneath the lights. The room hums with gentle conversation, a low murmur of art and new beginnings. Across the space, a stranger watches her, not with recognition but curiosity. He doesn't know her past, her scandal, or the ghosts that trail behind her. When he approaches, it's not to question, but to listen. "Your work feels like silence learning how to breathe," he says. She smiles, surprised by how those words feel like a mirror she didn't know she'd need it. They step outside together after the opening, rain slicking the city in silver reflections. The stranger offers his umbrella, but she declines, laughing softly, a sound she almost doesn't recognize as her own. The rain feels like cleansing, each droplet a quiet absolution. As they walk, she talks not about what happened, but what she's learning. How silence is not emptiness, but space to breathe. He listens without trying to fix her. The city lights blur into gold halos through the rain, and for a fleeting moment, she realizes she's not walking away from her past anymore. She's simply walking forward. That night, she writes a letter she never intends to send. The words pour easily at first. Gratitude, sorrow, the acknowledgement of everything Marcus once was and never became. She folds the paper neatly, places it in an unaddressed envelope, and slips it inside her sketchbook. Closure doesn't require delivery. Sometimes it's enough to have spoken the words, even to an empty page. The act itself is sacred, like setting down a heavy stone she's carried too far. Outside, lightning cuts through the skyline, and for the first time, she watches it without fear, only wonder. Morning finds her standing before the mirror, hair unstyled, face bare. For years, mirrors reflected versions of her curated to survive. The wife, the hostess, the portrait. Now she studies the woman who remains, and she doesn't look away. Outside, the city dawns again, patient and new. The piano waits by the window. The canvas glows in early light, and her heart, quiet but steady, feels like a home reclaimed. She whispers a simple truth to her reflection. "I am still here." The words aren't defiant. They're a promise. A month later, an embossed envelope arrives, its seal glinting in gold. An invitation to a charity gala downtown. Evelyn hesitates, thumb resting on the edge of the card. For years, she attended such events as someone's accessory, her laughter rehearsed, her presence ornamental. Now, the thought of returning feels like walking back into a cage, but also a chance to rewrite the narrative. She places the card on her table beside a half-finished painting and a cooling cup of tea. The city outside hums with possibility. She knows she will go, not to be seen, but to see how far she's come. The ballroom is opulent, a familiar theater of glass and perfume. Crystal chandeliers scatter light across gowns that whisper as they pass. Evelyn enters alone, in a dress of deep emerald that sways like the memory of forest rain. Conversations hush briefly, her presence stirring a mix of curiosity and admiration. She walks with quiet confidence, each step reclaiming space she once surrendered. When a photographer asks for a picture, she smiles, not as Marcus's wife, not as last year's scandal, but as herself. The flash feels cleansing. In that moment, she knows. She is no longer the story whispered about, but the one quietly rewritten. At the edge of the crowd, she sees him. Marcus, older in posture though not in years, standing alone with a glass of untouched champagne. Their eyes meet across the room, time folding for a heartbeat. He approaches cautiously, wearing remorse like cologne, heavy and transparent. "You look well," he says. The words falter thin. She nods, offering no invitation for more. The silence stretches, dignified, final. When he starts to explain, she gently interrupts. "You don't owe me a past, and I don't owe you a future." The music swells, saving him from a reply. She turns away, leaving him adrift in the reflection of what he once owned and lost. She steps out onto the balcony, where city lights shimmer like fallen stars below. The air is cool, scented with rain and freedom. The stranger from the gallery is there, leaning against the railing, the same quiet curiosity in his gaze. "You clean up well," he teases softly. and she laughs, not because of the compliment, but because it feels like breathing. They talk about art, silence, and the absurd poetry of survival. His words are gentle, never intrusive, like footsteps in snow. She doesn't think about love, not yet. She simply feels alive in the presence of someone who asks nothing of her. Back home, she unpins her earrings and lets the night slide off her shoulders like silk. The mirror reflects a woman no longer haunted by ghosts. Her dress pools at her feet, green against white marble, as she exhales slow and full. The evening replays in her mind. The faces, the flash, the confrontation that no longer stung. She feels a strange gratitude toward the chaos that once broke her. It built the version of her now standing beneath this soft light. In the window's reflection, the skyline glows, vast, endless, alive. She whispers a simple truth to the city. I've come home to myself. Evening settles gently, wrapping the city in amber hush. Inside her studio, the scent of oil paint and jasmine fills the air. Evelyn stands before her canvas, a new one, untouched. Yet this time, she doesn't hesitate. The strokes flow easily, confident, as if her hands finally remember the language her heart has been speaking all along. Through the glass, the city flickers awake in its twilight rhythm. But she no longer watches it from behind the veil of loneliness. She paints herself into the skyline, not as a reflection, but as color, as pulse. The brush glides, and each hue feels lighter than the last, as though forgiveness has texture after all, not for him, but for the woman who once believed silence meant surrender. The gallery glows under amber lamps, her name etched discreetly beside the title, The Weight of Light. Guests drift through the room, murmuring admiration. The curator smiles, proud and knowing. Evelyn stands a step back, watching strangers interpret her work. Some see sorrow, others rebirth, none knowing they are both. When the stranger from before appears beside her, his voice is low, reverent. It feels alive. She looks at him, surprised by how calm her heart remains. It is, she replies. It finally is. Around them, laughter ripples, glasses clink, and for the first time she feels present, not surviving the moment, but belonging to it. Later that night, her phone buzzes, a number she hasn't seen in months. She hesitates, then answers. Marcus's voice is quieter, stripped of performance. He speaks of endings, of apologies, of lessons learned too late. Evelyn listens, neither bitter nor indulgent. When he finishes, she says only, "We were both pretending to love versions that never existed." The silence that follows is not heavy. It is release, pure and clean. Take care of yourself, she adds softly, and ends the call. The sound of disconnection is gentle, final. The city hums outside, and she feels something close to peace. Not because she won, but because she no longer plays. She opens her journal, the same one she once used to write to him, and begins anew. But this time, the letter has only one recipient. Dear me, she writes, you waited too long to be heard, but when you finally spoke, you spoke the truth. You lost what was false and found what was real. Her handwriting flows steady, her eyes wet not with sadness, but awe. She folds the page, places it between the first sketch she ever drew and the newest painting she completed, sealing the past and present together. The act feels sacred, a vow whispered into eternity, to never again dim her own light for another's shadow. She steps onto the rooftop just before dawn, the city still trembling with dreams. The air is crisp, full of the scent of wet stone and possibility. Below, traffic murmurs like a heartbeat waiting to begin. She stands at the edge, wrapped in a wool coat, watching the first light spill between the towers. For a moment, she closes her eyes, letting the wind lift her hair, her breath merging with the morning's first sigh. The past has quieted. The future hums softly, patient. As the sun breaks, she whispers to no one and everyone, "I am free," and for the first time, the light feels weightless. Morning sunlight drifts through the wide gallery windows, washing the white walls in gold. Evelyn stands beside her paintings, surrounded by quiet. The afterglow of success, the calm that follows becoming known for something real. The curator enters with gentle footsteps, holding a letter embossed with the logo of an international exhibit. "They want your work in Paris," she says, smiling. Evelyn's breath catches, not for the prestige, but for the quiet realization that her art has carried her beyond survival. As she folds the letter, she thinks of the girl she was the night of her birthday, trapped beneath chandeliers of deceit, and smiles, soft and unguarded. She has not escaped that world. She has simply outgrown it. Later that afternoon, she sits by the window of a small cafe, her favorite refuge from the noise of acclaim. Steam curls from her cup, and the city outside bustles with new beginnings. The stranger, now no longer quite a stranger, appears with that same patient warmth, carrying 2 coffees. "You always drink it black," he says, placing one before her. "Still true," she replies, smiling. Their conversations meander. Art, storms, the taste of freedom, never once touching the ruins of their pasts. Between them, comfort grows like sunlight through rain. Unhurried, natural. She realizes she doesn't need him to complete her. She simply enjoys the silence they share, a silence that no longer hurts. The letter lies open on her kitchen counter, the flight date underlined in elegant print, Paris. A dream she once deferred for someone else's ambition. Now it waits for her, untethered. She runs her fingers across the paper, imagining streets lined with rain, the hum of languages she doesn't yet know. He stands by the window, watching her with quiet curiosity. "Will you go?" he asks. "I think I have to," she answers, "not to escape, but to arrive." He nods, his smile touched with admiration, not ownership. "Then I'll meet you there," he says, simple as a promise, unbound by time. And in that moment she feels love not as possession, but as alignment. 2 souls moving in their own orbit, yet toward the same horizon. The airport hums with the rhythm of departures. The scent of jet fuel and coffee thicken the air. Evelyn stands before the glass wall, overlooking the runway, suitcase at her side. Rain streaks the glass like silver threads. She watches a plane ascend, its engines drowning out every hesitation. When her flight is called, she takes one last look at the city. The skyline that once mirrored her heartbreak now glimmers like a crown she forged herself. Boarding feels like stepping into light, not running from shadow. She doesn't know what awaits her across the ocean, and for once, she doesn't need to. Freedom has no destination, only direction. Paris greets her in pale dawn. Rooftops slick with rain, the sign glimmering like liquid silver. She stands on a quiet bridge, suitcase by her side, watching the first sunlight catch the spires. The air smells of coffee and renewal. In that fragile stillness she feels it, the heartbeat of a city, the echo of her own. Behind her, footsteps approach, familiar yet unassuming. She turns, and he's there. The man who never asked her to be anything but herself. No grand gestures, no declarations, just presence. She smiles, and he mirrors it, the kind of exchange that doesn't need words. Together, they walk into the light, their shadows long and parallel. 2 stories no longer broken, but whole. The apartment overlooks the Seine, small yet drenched in light. Canvas frames lean against the wall. Open windows invite the hum of Paris morning. Evelyn unpacks slowly. Brushes, notebooks, the journal she once filled with unsent letters. She sets it on the sill beside a vase of fresh peonies. Outside, boats drift lazily beneath the bridges, bells echoing through the city's spine. She feels no urgency to paint, no ache to prove anything. Her life, finally, feels like art enough. The city breathes in rhythm with her. Each sound a heartbeat, each reflection a promise. For the first time, she doesn't look at the skyline, she lives inside it. The marketplace buzzes with life. Vendors calling out in melodic French, fruit glistening under striped awnings, the scent of coffee and bread thick in the air. Evelyn walks through the crowd, her sketchbook under one arm, her laughter easy. The man joins her near a stall of sunflowers, buying one and handing it to her without a word. She takes it, smiling, not as a gesture of romance, but of recognition. They sit at a cafe nearby, sunlight spilling across the table, their conversation weaving between silence and laughter. The city no longer feels foreign. It feels like it has been waiting for her all along. Weeks later, her new studio is alive with color. Canvases in progress, sunlight pouring through tall, arched windows. She paints not from memory, but from the present. Her brush translating the sound of laughter, drifting up from the streets, the echo of bells, the taste of rain. The man arrives quietly, watching her work. "You look different when you paint," he says softly. She pauses, smiles. "No," she answers. "I just look like myself." He nods, stepping closer, but doesn't interrupt. Outside, the clouds part, and light floods in. A baptism of radiance washing over them both. That evening they attend a small piano concert in a candlelit hall. The music begins, slow, haunting, tender, and Evelyn closes her eyes. Each note feels like an echo of her own journey, the restraint, the crescendo, the stillness. When the pianist pauses between movements, the silence feels sacred. She feels his hand slip into hers. Neither claim nor question, simply presence. A single tear escapes, not from sadness, but from recognition. She has become what she once sought. Harmony. The applause rises like rain and she claps softly, eyes glistening in the glow of 100 tiny flames. Morning. Paris hums softly below her window. Evelyn stands once more at the mirror, not the one of vanity, but of a rival. The woman who looks back is neither the betrayed wife nor the avenging ghost. She is light itself, refracted whole. She ties her hair loosely, opens the balcony doors, and lets the wind carry in the city's heartbeat. Down the street, bells ring, children laugh, and the day begins as all honest things do, without performance. She steps outside, sunlight warming her skin, and closes her eyes. "Mercy," she whispers to no one in particular, to everything in return. And the world, patient, vast, and bright, whispers back,